Who's ready for some good news? Yeah, me too. Definitely need some good news these days. And we're here to provide it. So I'm Amanda Leland, and we're here to talk about a story of hope. It's actually a real story. These events did happen. I have a book coming out on Tuesday of next week called Sea Change. All right, woo! Yeah, thank you for that. And we're going to talk a little bit about the story that's in the book, Sea Change, today. And it centers on the crisis of overfishing. Who's heard of overfishing before? Thank you. Oh, I see a lot of my colleagues in the back raising their hands. 20-ish years ago, 15-ish years ago, this was a problem that was reported in the news almost on a daily basis. Do you remember the stories that said that the oceans were going to run out of fish before 2050? Do you remember that? Do you see those stories still running these days? No. So what happened? Why is that the case? Not to say all the problems in the oceans have been solved. They haven't. But there's some real progress that's been made. And we're going to talk about one fishery in particular, the red snapper fishery based in the Gulf, the area from Texas to Florida along the south coast of the United States, and the incredible progress and the incredible partnerships that have been built. And 20 years ago, Buddy and I would not have been found in the same room, let alone on the same stage. I was in graduate school even before that, so that gives you a sense of how old I am. And I was a marine scientist. I'm a marine biologist, and I was working in Maine, coastal Maine, and I was essentially a scientist who was hired to help see if we could bring back fisheries where they totally collapsed. And that was a pretty consistent story about fisheries around the country, a story of collapse. And it was so tense, just showing up as this like young scientist reporting my results. It got so tense at these meetings that police would have to stand by my side and put their hands on their holsters. That was in Maine. But that was happening around the country and in many places around the world. It was that tense. Environmentalists and fishermen were not showing up together 20 years ago, but here we are today, and we're going to talk about that. And one last point before I open it up to Buddy so he can tell us his story is that the lessons that come through are broadly applicable. This isn't just about solving the overfishing crisis, though I'm pretty happy to say we've made real progress there. But it's actually about solving environmental challenges across the board. Because when you sit down with people and you talk to people that you may not otherwise agree with, and you hear about what drives them and what motivates them and what they need to see, you end up connecting in a deeply human way. And you can actually, in many cases, find some areas of common ground and then look to move forward on those things. And if there's one lesson I want you to take away from this conversation in this day and age and all of the challenges that we feel on a 5-minute basis when we look at our news feed, it's that when you sit down and talk to somebody you may not otherwise agree with, there's the potential for real progress. Okay, Buddy. Buddy Guindon, lifelong fisherman. Read the book and you'll learn all about his life because he's the main character in Sea Change. He's the protagonist. Does he look like a pretty amazing protagonist? He does. But he was not always the protagonist. So, Buddy, tell us what was going on in the Gulf, in the red snapper fishery with your small business 20 years ago.
Is this thing on?
Yes.
Okay. So we were fishing for the last fish, to sum it up real quick, we were in a declining fishery, and we were run by the federal government's command and control, shorten the season, shorten the amount of fish you can do. Everything the government ever did was to take something back. And so the environmentalists showed up They were there to take something else back. And I wouldn't allow my children to be in my business. I didn't let my wife be involved in my business. It was a failing business. Our business model was, let's catch the last fish and move on to something else. Galveston, Texas, on the Gulf.
You said you didn't want your kids or your wife or your family to get involved in the business. Say a little bit more about red snapper at that time. Like, what were you experiencing as you were fishing, or what happened in your life as you were trying to fish in red snapper?
Well, I built a business while we were in a declining fishery. I mean, it was a lot of hard work, and we were competing with each other. We would go fishing when the weather was horrible. We had a lot of loss of life. We had a lot of loss of equipment. It was a terrible, terrible time. I love to fish, so I was going to do it with my life no matter what. No matter what the circumstances were, I was going to continue to fish because that's what I love to do. Okay. So I guess things were terrible. I don't know how else to say. We were fishing for nothing. We were coming in, the derby fishery is what we called it. Everybody went out at the same time under the government's 10-day rule. We'd fish for 10 days, 2,000 pounds a trip, and you'd come back and forth as fast as you could. And I had 3 children at home at that time, and I had to go no matter what the weather was, and no matter what the conditions were, and no matter what the price was. I mean, you can imagine the whole Gulf going out on day 1, January 1st, and everybody catches 2,000 pounds and brings them to the dock. Well, that market's flooded within a couple of days, so our prices wouldn't start out very high because they knew we had to unload them. Knew we had to sell them to go back and catch more. So it was just a bad business plan.
Who's seen The Deadliest Catch? That was a real phenomenon, that show. Obviously it was a real show, but it was a real phenomenon. Fishing was the most dangerous job in the United States for years, like leagues ahead of any other job that you think of, mining or agriculture or, fill in the blank. It was the deadliest job in America. It turns out that story changes for The Deadliest Catch. It becomes not The Deadliest Catch. And Buddy's fishery went through a similar transition to have a good outcome. So along come environmentalists like me, some of my colleagues, and some fishermen, other fishermen in the Gulf of in the Gulf Coast, who work together to advocate for a different management system that's often called a catch share system. And I'll talk a little bit about what that is. But before we get into that, I want to know, were you a fan of having this new management system? Even though, you were in a declining fishery, you were in the race to the bottom, trying to catch the last fish. You were telling your kids not to get into the business. Did you, was that a good idea?
No, Amanda, I wanted nothing to do with your plan. Like I said, everything that the government or the environmentalists ever brought to us took something away. So I had 2 chances to vote to change the system, and I voted against it both times. Best vote I ever lost.
So at the time, this was so controversial that the fishermen had to approve the new management system by a 2/3 vote twice. Think of the times when 2/3 of people agree to anything once, let alone twice. Buddy right here was one of the holdouts who voted against it both times. It passed by 80% both times. So a new management system comes into place, and it's called this catch share system. And catch shares fundamentally, rather than Buddy and all of his fishing friends racing out at the same time to catch as many fish as they can, it allocates to Buddy or other fishermen a certain amount of the catch that they can get all year long. That's the fundamental change. And if you think about it like a pie, if the total amount that can be taken out is like a pie, and each fisherman gets a wedge or a slice of the pie, what happens when that pie gets bigger?
we make more money.
The wedge gets bigger. So if he has a secure share of a certain amount, he's going to get more fish next year, which means he's going to get more money. So Buddy votes against this twice. And then the new program starts to get implemented on January 1st, 2007. Am I right in the year?
Yes.
What happens on the first day or the third week or the third month?
Okay, so I fish for a living, so I don't pay attention to the books that much. So about 3 months into this system, my son is telling me the price of fish is up through the roof. It's double what it was when we were fishing in the Derby. This is only 3 months into the management system. So I started looking at the books. Our expenses to go catch a pound of fish have dropped 80%. So right away, with a quota cut in the beginning that was 50% of our fish were taken away from us to go into this system. We volunteered for that, apparently. I wasn't there while they were volunteering for that. But they volunteered to take a 50% cut and start this system. Well, 3 months into it, it's the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. I'm looking at a business plan you couldn't write. You couldn't buy one like this. Your fish price has doubled. Your expenses have been cut in half. So my next move was to go find out who these people were that did that to me. And I kind of like them. They changed my whole world. Right now, all 4 of my boys are involved in my business. My wife's involved. We've vertically integrated into a fish market and a restaurant. And we're doing very well. And more importantly, our stock of fish is doing very well. We have a better stock of fish now than we've ever had in the Gulf in my lifetime. And I've been doing this 46 years. And every year or two, we get a quota increase. Instead of back in the Derby, we were getting these quota decreases all the time. So we get quota increases, which makes my slice of the pie bigger, which means I can have my 8 grandchildren come into the business after me. And I couldn't thank them enough for what they forced me into. I like to say it's the best vote I ever lost.
Thank you, Buddy. Thank you. So I always appreciate it when he says these kind things about EDF and my colleagues and many partners who are on this journey with us over the last 20 years. But the thing about Buddy that makes him so amazing is that not only does he say thank you, but he steps up time and time again. He has now become the biggest champion for this kind of approach. And he's traveled around the world talking with other fishermen about what's possible for them. So maybe you could share some of those experiences.
Very simple, for me. Because I'm a fisherman, fishermen have a connection, no matter where you are in the world. If you're a fisherman, people will recognize, other fishermen will recognize that. So for me, as a prior service Marine, to pay back the debt I owe to these folks that gave me a life back in my fishery and allowed me to have a very successful business, I have gone all over the world. And they've taken me there and introduced me to men just like myself that work hard for a living and risk their lives. And when they run in the room to these people, are just like I was. They want nothing to do with them. They don't want to. They figure they're lying to them, and they're just gonna. They'll be here for a while, and then they'll be gone. So if we just ignore them, they'll go away. But when I come with them, I bring, some reality to these guys, and I tell them my story and one of his success. And I heard every place I ever went, they said that won't work in my fishery. But the whole thing about a catch share, it's like a house under construction. You just build the frame, and then all the fishermen get together and sit down at a table and figure out how to, decorate the inside of this fishery management system. So it'll work in any fishery if enough people get at the table and sit down and talk about it. Even guys, in the fishery, when you fish against each other, you're not friends. When you fish together to build a fishery, we're all friends. So Back my first part of my career, didn't have any friends in the fishery. Now they're all my friends. So it's been a great experience to be educated, I guess.
Another aspect of this that was part of the magic that I don't think any of us really predicted is it wasn't just about you building community fundamentally in Galveston with other fishermen in your sector and actually other fishermen in the recreational sector, but it also created a platform for collaboration with fishermen all around the United States. And now you all have a collective voice to advocate for sustainable fishing policy, for funding, for scientists that can help ensure that we have a sense of what's going on in these fisheries. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that as an outgrowth of all of these changes.
How many of you didn't hear about the Deepwater Horizon? The oil spill in the Gulf? That was the largest spill in the whole world, in my world anyways. We had the ability during that spill to develop a program to identify where our fish came from. We now can put a QR code on a tag, stick it in a fish when we catch it, and the public knows where the fish was caught, who caught it, how it got to their table. And if people choose to use this system, it's fabulous. It gives you all the information you need. But what it did is gave us the ability to identify our product as a good product, because the oil spill all went to the east, and we're in the western Gulf. So we were able to sell our fish through this period of time and assure people that it was safe because they could read the story right on the tag that came out. And that was a big change for us to be able to identify our product, because back during the Derby, we would sell our fish for nothing. And then the imports would come in the 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the month that we were closed, and their price would be, a third higher or more than what we were getting for these fresh caught fish that are landing every day. So, big change.
How many people here enjoy seafood? How many people here know the distinction between domestic seafood and imported seafood? How many people here know that the vast majority of the seafood that's eaten in the United States comes from outside of the United States? How many of you would love to choose to buy fresh red snapper from someone like Buddy? Yeah. There's an incredible opportunity right in front of us to help Buddy and other fishermen like him grow their markets, grow their market share, and as a consumer, feel really good about that option, because not only is it sustainable, but it's helping to grow community and business. How many people, long ago and far away, it was, I think, just you and a couple guys on your boat. Am I right?
Yes.
And how many people do you employ now?
240, which is amazing for a barely high school graduate.
Because what he's done is, as he's grown into the different aspects of this business, he's put more investment into that growth, right? So he started as a fisherman. He then got the fish house, which when I first saw it was kind of a shack on the water, but it
still is.
It's nicer now. And then Katie's Seafood, the restaurant, if you're ever in Galveston, you should go check it out. It's beautiful and it's amazing, and it's a part of the Galveston community. It's a destination for a lot of people.
We don't serve anything that doesn't come out of the Gulf. And that's very important to me, because they just did a seafood testing deal up and down the Gulf Coast, and Texas came out the best at 65% fraudulently advertised seafood. That's one of the things we're working on now, is to get the states to start making these restaurants identify on their menus where their seafood comes from. Because you shouldn't pay $40 for a plate of snapper when it comes imported and it's been frozen and you're getting it on your plate. You should pay $40 for that fresh snapper, because it's expensive to get that fish to the plate in this country.
So thank you all for listening. Maybe I'll just capture 3 lessons from this story, this incredibly powerful, very real story, what often called the greatest environmental success story that nobody knows about because it isn't just Buddy's Fisheries, it's around the U.S., is that heroes can be hiding in plain sight. Solutions that work are the ones that help improve people's lives very quickly. This solution worked because Buddy was better off in 3 months' time. And when you sit down and you talk with people you might not agree with, big, amazing things can happen. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
I would like to say one more thing. Because of the work of Environmental Defense Fund, when I was fishing, 80% of our fisheries in this country were overfished. Today, 80% of our fisheries in this country are either fixed or in the late stages of being fixed. So I'm proud to be associated with Environmental Defense Fund.